It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Interesting day in the Capitol today as Bernie Sanders held a Senate committee hearing asking the simple question: should taxpayer dollars go to companies that violate labor laws? I've said for the very longest time, always, answer no. Could have called me? Could have called me, Bernie, and I'd told you no. Simple. Shouldn't be able to break the law. Shouldn't be able to violate labor law. Labor law is law. Should not be able to violate it. Seems simple, but if you listen to some of the Lindsey Grahams of the world, well, it's not that cut and dry because, we need corporate America. We're dependent upon them. Now, the panel had, three folks that I agree with, two not so much. Christian Smalls, the president of the Amazon Labor Union, who we've had on this program a couple of times, talking about the work that he has done in New York, organizing workers there. Also had new Teamsters president Sean O'Brien testify before the committee. Also Greg Leroy, who's been on this program a bunch of times, executive director of Good Jobs First. And then you had the corporate folks. Rachel Gressler, her name is, senior research fellow over at the Heritage Foundation, and the Chamber of Commerce guy, Glenn Spencer, who gave, the corporate America needs to beat up on workers kind of spiel. Only they didn't couch it in those terms. Now, this is one of those moments where you watch this hearing, and I think every working person should, because it really was an interesting kind of bit of political theater. In that you had, Sanders, you had the Teamsters president, you had, the Amazon Labor Union president, you had Greg Leroy saying, look, workers must have rights. We have to treat workers with dignity and respect. They should be entitled to a portion of the wealth that their labor creates. All of the things that you hear me say, well, always. Then you had the opposite side of it, the corporate side. It's businesses' responsibility to beat up on their workers, to squeeze as much out of them as possible, maximize profit, run their business however they want, treat workers however they want. And then there was some of the middle ground, and we'll get into a little bit of that as well. Can't we just get along? And I've made that argument as well. Corporate America could, as some companies have, view unions as a partner in this, and we're going to all work together. We're going to figure this out. I find it interesting the people who are making that the third way we can all get along don't quite seem to get that the workers want it that way. The workers don't want an adversarial relationship. The workers don't want to be constantly at odds, butting heads. They want to be able to make a good living. They want to be able to support their families. They want to be able to have some dignity and respect on the job. They want to be safe. And, this hearing for me, while these Senate hearings can get a little wonky and boring, and most of us have lives that we have to get to, and I completely understand that I'm probably the only one in all of our listening areas that bothered to watch this. But I think it's that important that I did spend the hour and a half, and I did watch, every minute of it. And, I'll tell you, it was the person who is closest to the ground that I agreed with. It was Christian Smalls who had the best lines of all of it, because, it's the stuff that we talk about here. It's about the workers. The quote that he had today that's getting some play, this isn't a right, this isn't left, this isn't Democrat, this isn't Republican. This is a worker thing. This is about workers. This is about people going to work, showing up, punching a clock, earning a reasonable living, having some dignity and respect. It's about that. It's about not being abused. It's not about not being exploited. It's about not being put in the untenuous situations that the workers are put in every single day in this country. All in the pursuit of more profit for the handful. Now, Sanders, and look, I love Bernie Sanders. I've said before, full disclosure, first guy I ever interviewed during radio, in the beginning when I started this, the first individual interview I ever did. That would have been back in 2005. He frames it as this is about Bezos. He asked the question, how much is enough for Bezos? How much is enough? And that's, it's a question worth asking. How much for the billionaire class and the wealth class is enough? But, I take it a step further than just focusing solely on Jeff Bezos. Bezos is the figurehead in this. Yes, I get that. But this is the corporate mindset, the CEO mindset that it's never enough. The former CEO of Caterpillar was asked how much is enough one time. And he says, there's never enough. It's never enough. Always want more. Always want to squeeze just a little bit more out, a little more efficiency, a little bit more productivity, a little bit more. If we can just get more out of our workers, if we can get more out of our equipment, if we can get more, it's more. And again, this is the difference between the more that Samuel Gompers was talking about, 100 some years ago, and the more that corporate America is talking about. It's that war between capital and labor. The more of capital is more for us, more greed. Greed is good, more profit, more shareholder value, more stock value, more for us. And the more that Gompers was talking about was more opportunity for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, more opportunity for education, more opportunity for leisure and learning, and more opportunity for the better things that life has to offer, for life outside of a narrow pursuit of more profit. And I thought this political theater before me was interesting in those kind of those themes, because you had your characters and they did not disappoint. They brought their talking points, they hammered on their issues, and reality of reality, it is about the workers. And sadly, most of the time it gets lost, because while Lindsey Graham wanted to make this about all politics, it was all about Sanders using the committee to attack one company. No, this isn't attacking just one company, because this doesn't just happen. The kind of behavior that we're seeing at Amazon doesn't just happen at Amazon. There's an industry that brings this kind of union busting all across this country. And I think Christian Smalls, again, had another interesting thing that he pointed out. He said, look, even before you know what your job is, they're running you through anti-union campaigns. On day one, you're getting anti-union propaganda. Day two, you're getting the videos. You're getting inundated why unions are bad. And I've always said, look, companies have the ability to tell you why unions are bad without telling you that they're bad, by showing you how good they are. A good company is the best way to not ever have to have someone looking to join and form unions. The best union busting tactic is to not be a crummy employer. I mean, the message out of this for me is that simple. If it weren't so bad for so many, you wouldn't have such interest. And this is that kind of moment where the message has been lost and it's now political. It's about Lindsey Graham attacking Bernie Sanders. It's about socialism and about policy. It's about their worldview of, government is bad. This is the kind of stuff that, I keep looking for us as working people to wake up. Some simple truths. And Christian Smalls, for his his dress and for his demeanor, is spot on message wise. He is speaking the language of the working class. It's about us. It's about the workers. We're the ones who are struggling. We're the ones who are suffering. We're the ones who are creating the profits and not sharing in the value. And at the end of this, policy leaders had better figure this out. Now, Lindsey Graham went into, well, back in the day, union density was at X amount of percent. Now it's down to like 6%. And it's right. And it's for all of the reasons that we've been talking about. The heavy-handedness of corporate America, and not just Amazon. Now, Graham wanted to focus on Sanders going, you're just going after just this one company. No, this is all of them that do this. All of these companies that do this stuff. And for me, not one of them should get a federal dollar, because we should be using our tax dollars as a way to raise standards, as a way to make things better, to move us in a more positive direction. Now, interesting, the Heritage Foundation woman was like, no, we can't possibly, do those kind of things to use procurement to raise standards, because it would be bad. I think her line was something that would be bad for national security. It would be bad for health care. I forget exactly how she put it, but it's one of these things where you go, really? So your argument is it's going to make things bad. Making things bad will make things better. And that's their logic, that if we exploit some, it'll be better for everybody. Or at least that seems to be what it is. Now, I thought Teamsters President Sean O'Brien did a good job. He said, look, at the end of the day, it's wrong for our government to give taxpayer dollars in the form of federal contracts to companies like Amazon. He said there's no excuse to reward employers who repeatedly, knowingly, and purposely violate labor laws, drive down wages and standards across supply chains, including core Teamster industries, and create dangerous working environments. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's like I would have said it myself, because I'm sure I've said that a number of times over the years. We need to hold these folks accountable. We need to do it in ways that are across the board for everyone, and lift standards up for people. Now, the surprising part, and this is where it gets a little interesting, because I expected all of the parts to go here or there. I expected, Sanders to be, wholly 100% here, Graham to be 100% on the far other side. I expected Tim Kaine to come in and waffle as a good corporate Democrat would do. Hey, can't we just get along, and, peace and love and hippie kind of stuff. And great, you need that. You need that as the go-between so we can find, a way forward. But it was Indiana Senator Mike Braun that I thought was the surprising one to me. And he talked about himself. He said, for him, the best way to go about this, for him, high wages, the best benefits possible. And I'm going, I don't like Mike Braun. I don't like Mike Braun as a senator at all. I think he's a bad senator. I think he's an ideological senator. I think he's part of a lot of the problems that we have on a lot of the culture issues. But holy blankety blank blank, the blind squirrel done found himself a nut. Because it's what I've been saying. If you treat your employees with dignity and respect, and he said, look, all of my employees, I treated like they were family. I looked them in the eye. I knew who they were. This kind of stuff. He said, look, a CEO making 150 times what their employee makes is insane. I didn't want to let him in and go, hey, shh, it's like 300 times. But hey, I'm not going to stop you in the middle of a rant. Now, if you had employers like that who understood, look, we live in the same world. Treat people with dignity and respect. Give them a living wage. Make sure that their family has health security. Make sure that they have some retirement security. Make sure they've got safe workplaces. You know what would happen? This is simple. This is not rocket science. Don't need Mike Braun to explain this to me. You wouldn't have a need for labor unions. If you had employers who treated their workforce like that, you wouldn't need them. Problem is we don't. And I thought, Sean O'Brien and Greg Leroy went through a lot of the reasons why companies like Amazon, these big behemoths, see people as machines, as factors of production, as things, negatives on the balance sheet, to be used and discarded. Amazon, with their 150% turnover rate, injury rates much higher than the industry average. Not showing that they care much about their workforce. And not surprising that you have this interest in people organizing. So for me, this hearing today kind of is one of those moments where it's time to start thinking about who we're voting for and why. And if you're a working person, while I agree with Chris Smalls, it's not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's not a left-right thing. It's a worker thing. When it becomes a political thing, this worker thing, you got to look who's on your side. Clearly, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, not on the side of the average worker. And he brought up Boeing, for instance. And Boeing has had some significant problems in trying to avoid their union workforce. Why? Because they want more profit. They want to squeeze more work out of their workforce at lower wages. And they're not really doing well. And again, this is one of those corporate decisions. They've gone head full into South Carolina, and, well, it ain't working for them. But they're never going to go back because, well, that would have to admit that, maybe their union workforce was actually well-skilled, well-trained, dedicated, loyal, and worth the investment. Just a thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back on the other side. Stick around. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a moment of the program. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. Quick break. Right back.
Taking on climate change. This is our moment to get it right. And here's how we do it. By putting the American auto worker on the job. Building the electric cars and trucks that take us where we need to go without the pollution that's warming the planet. The cars we love, the trucks we depend on, all made right here in America by union auto workers. More electric vehicles. That's how we build a clean energy future. That's how we take on climate change.
So one of the big points of contention that they were making is one of the things that Senator Sanders wants is when you do use federal dollars for contracting, that employers have to sign neutrality agreements, allow workers to join and form unions without interference. This used to be the position of the federal government for a couple of generations. It's how our grandparents built the largest, most prosperous working class in the history of civilization. It was an activist government saying we want workers to join unions. We want companies and employees to sit down at the bargaining table and hammer out the best wages, hours, and conditions. We want them to do it. We don't want to be involved in it. We want to get it done. We don't want to have to keep passing laws. We believe in democratizing the workplace. Now, I found it interesting that the Heritage Foundation people said that by signing neutrality agreements, that this would harm workers, that the companies signing these would actually harm the workers. I love this line of thinking. This is my favorite. This is my favorite abuser kind of thought process. By not allowing the employers to abuse their employees, they're cheating their employees out of the knowledge of how bad the unions are going to abuse them. This is the line of thinking. I'm not making this up. The argument was that it's the company's responsibility to their workforce to tell the employees how bad unions are. So it's the company's responsibility to hold captive audience meetings and bring in union busters that they're paying $20,000 an hour to lie to them and threaten them and threaten to close plants and all kinds of stuff. All of the things that we've heard from these union busters. It's their responsibility. It's not their right. It's not, they made that argument too. It's their right to make their case. They should be able to say whatever they want. It's free, yeah, all that. No, it's their responsibility. It's a must for corporate America to do this. Now, it got me thinking as I'm hearing this line of logic that, we came from a world not too long ago, 1932, actually, was when the Norris-LaGuardia Act was passed that banned yellow dog contracts. And for those who don't know, yellow dog contracts were, as an employee, first day of work, you signed a contract saying, I will never join a labor union ever, 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 not even clinically, won't even think about it. And if I do, you have the right to fire me. And they use these contracts to sue people and to sue organizers and to go after unions because, hey, they were sacrosanct because you signed a contract, liberty of contract. You signed it. And it's one of these things where if you stop and you think about it logically, you go, well, you signed the contract. Well, you didn't have a choice to sign the contract. Again, that whole free market ideology is, free market only works as if you have the ability to abstain. Well, if you need the job, and every employer says in order for you to get a job with any of us, you have to sign these contracts, kind of like the forced arbitration stuff today, which I liken to yellow dog contracts of the past. Who's going to hire you if you refuse to sign it? Nobody. So you're going to sign it just so you can get the job. And most people didn't even know what they were signing. A lot like, fast food workers signing non-compete agreements at fast food places and then finding out that they're saying, hey, you can't go work at the sandwich shop across the street because, hey, PB&J is now proprietary. This is what corporate America has been getting away with for a very long time. And there was a brief period in history where the Supreme Court wasn't crazy, where we had strong labor unions, where we had active, engaged workers in their unions fighting back against this stuff. And we're at a moment right now where that kind of activism is coming back. And the wealth class a little concerned. The Lindsey Grahams of the world a little concerned. Now look, I understand some people may have problems with joining a union. Don't. You can go somewhere else. That's simple. But in unionized workplaces, everybody should pay into the system that creates the wages, hours, and conditions that they earn. It is that simple to me. It doesn't get any more difficult. There's no free riders. I don't get a free lunch in anything else I do. And they hammered on this during the hearing. The Chamber of Commerce wouldn't let me come to one of their dinners where there was a speaker that I wanted to hear. I asked. I said, hey, I'm not a member, but I want to come. And I want to come for free. Because I want to see the speaker. I want the benefit of your organization, but I don't want to pay for it. Do you know they wouldn't let me come? Are you surprised? Should I have been allowed to come? Of course not. Not even I believe that. But that's what they're selling us. And this is the world that the cons want us to believe is possible. I want a world where we all work hard, we all play by the rules, and we all get ahead. Where we share in the wealth that our labor creates. That we all have dignity and respect when we're at work and in society. It seems pretty simple to me. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We'll take a quick break right back after this. Remember, if you're just now joining us, grab the podcast. Never miss a second. Always there, always available anywhere you find your podcasts, from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. Always there, always on, always ready for you. Quick break, right back.
It doesn't matter what kind of weather. It doesn't matter what time of day or night. When Mother Nature's done her worst, the only thing that matters to us is keeping the lights on for you. The hardworking women and men of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, dedicated to keeping the power on in communities all across the country. Because when bad weather strikes, we know what matters most. IBEW, the power professionals.
So Matt Gaetz taking a beating, as he should. You knew when the tweet of the overeducated, underloved woman thing, you knew that wasn't going to fare well for a guy who allegedly had to pay for sex. You knew that was going to go poorly. And look, I'm waiting for the flow of more things to come out against him. I mean, we're going to talk about the Madison Cawthorn stuff here in a bit, because that's all Republicans throwing him under the bus. This is not Democrats doing this at all. These are the people who sat with Madison Cawthorn. These are his friends doing this to him. I'm waiting for the overeducated, unloved Republican women to be not happy with Matt Gaetz, and maybe even not Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I don't put her in the over. I put her in the, this is what happens when you don't have an education. Maybe we need more overly educated women, and here to be one of those, one of my favorite overly educated. I don't even know what the hell that means. Maybe a smart woman can explain it to me. That's why I've asked my good friend Sarah Burris to come explain it to me. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story, one of the smartest people on the beat, and does fabulous work. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
You are too kind.
So let's start with question number one. What exactly is an overeducated woman?
Maybe it's those of us who are still paying off our student loans. I guess if you got like over $40,000, maybe that's too much education. That's when your education gets too expensive. I don't know. I think the more educated a woman is, the better. But that's just me. I'm not from the 1600s, and it seems that Mr. Gates is. But again, this is not somebody who really gets along that well with women unless he pays them. So.
Yeah. So this gets me to this point, though, this idea, and you get this on the right. Look, I mean, Donald Trump, I love the poorly educated, this distrust of smart, this distrust of science, this distrust of education, this hatred of, all of the things that would be, I don't know, erudite, just some thoughts, people with, things between their ears, bad. This kind of plays into that frame, doesn't it? I mean, this is who they are. I mean, this is them telling us this is who we are.
Absolutely, it does. And the dumber you are, the easier you are to control. And you would think that people would have figured that out a while ago about the Republican Party, that this is all about control. This is obviously the Supreme Court news this week is all about controlling women's bodies. It's all about controlling the information that's in schools with anti-CRT and Don't Say Gay. Like, everything that Republicans do is about controlling you. And this is the party that used to be about small government, that used to be about getting the government out of your business. And now it really has become this crazy overlord that's just so anti-American, it's ridiculous.
No, Sarah. It's about freedom. This is about freedom. It's about freedom. Haven't you heard? It's about freedom.
Freedom, my Aunt Fanny.
No, but this is how it's been framed. I mean, this is, I've had a couple people tell me this is about getting, big government off our backs. And I'm going, explain to me how this is getting government out of your lives. And no one's outside of, it's like the South Park episode, with, we collect underpants and then we get rich. There's that big gap in the middle of, okay, you collect all the underpants. How do you get to the end? This is, okay, you've caught the dog's caught the car. How is this freedom? How does this make lives better? Explain this? Because it seems to me that you've put government right smack in the lives of every woman and every family in this country now, because you're going to create an environment where, well, I'm waiting for Dog the Bounty Hunter to start sniffing through people's garbage to make sure that some woman didn't have an abortion somewhere else.
Yeah, and first of all, let's give you props for having a South Park reference. Well played. But this is government, shrinking government down so small that it can fit up your hoo-ha in your uterus. All of these people who have been complaining so much about wearing your mask and the government can't dictate that I get vaccinated. You're basically mandating that the government decides somebody's health care. And the fact that that has gone over people's head is beyond me. The law in Louisiana that was passed out of committee today would make abortion illegal at any stage at all. So we're talking an embryo at an IVF clinic. If it's thrown out and not implanted, you can now be charged with homicide. Like, that is the law that they want to pass. And I saw some Republican, conservative, whatever person on Twitter today say, that's never going to happen because, that's just not good optics. And it took less than 8 hours. and that law was passed out of committee, and I was like, did you not notice this? Are you gonna do a retraction? Are you gonna write some big article about how, oh, whoops, I was wrong? Because it clearly, whatever Republicans seem to think, their little talking points that they put out today, it's all about, oh, Democrats are so reactionary because we're not taking away birth control, except that's what they're going to do in Louisiana. Forget an IUD. God forbid you can have, Plan B or whatever. And so the idea that somehow we're hysterical about this is beyond me. We should be hysterical, frankly. We should all be hysterical. Even people who don't have a uterus should absolutely be hysterical because, you might love somebody who has a uterus. You might be having sex with somebody who has a uterus who now you're going to be on the hook for 18 years. So think about that one as well.
Are you? I mean, this is the thing that gets me. Are we passing laws to make sure that people are on the hook? Because look, I tell my story in this. Look, I don't even know who my father is. I don't even know his name, and I don't want to know. We lived in abject poverty in this country because my mother was a single mother during the 70s, and this country is not good for single mothers. We're basically forcing women to go what my mother went through, and she led a very difficult life until she died. This is not the kind of thing that I want to see replicated over and over again. So I'm struggling with the future for a whole bunch of people who were going to be forced to grow up like I did. This is problematic on a whole bunch of levels, but I don't see the policies coming to fix those things. And this is where I'm struggling with all this. Look, if you were to say, okay, we're going to make abortion illegal, but we're going to pass health care to make sure that women get all the care that they need, the prenatal stuff. And as soon as the kid comes out, the kid's going to get fed. It's going to get a roof over its head. We're going to have education. We're going to have health care. It's going to be great. Don't worry about it. We're gonna be partners with you in bringing kids into this world so that no child goes to bed hungry. No child's gonna be homeless. No child's gonna have to worry about getting. Then we can have an honest conversation. This ain't that. This is do what we're making you do, and we're imposing and punishing you with this. And this is that's wrong.
I think one of the things that we should start pushing, because the way that this law is written, and I don't know if the Supreme Court ruling, the way that Alito wrote it, if that will be the final or what, but I think because we're writing this as, or the court is writing this as with a personhood idea in mind, that is a big piece of this that I really think we should push in litigation, because we're talking about a complete change to all of our laws. If all of a sudden an embryo is a person, we're talking about somebody who now can apply for food stamps, somebody who can apply for welfare. Does that mean that every person in the world is now actually 9 months older than they originally were? And does that mean that you can apply for Social Security sooner than you thought? There are so many different things, like, can you drive in the carpool lane now because you're pregnant, right? Like, all of these very interesting questions. I think that we should push this in court, because I would love for Republicans to be able to stand up and say, well, yeah, you're pregnant, but that's not actually a person, so you can't drive in the carpool lane. Like, that should be the questions that they are forced to answer on the record, because at what point does it become, this is really just about controlling women versus I really do believe in what I'm saying I believe in, right?
Yeah.
Look, I want to start playing with those laws.
I've said for a long time we should have the Monty Python law. The every sperm is sacred.
Well, there's that too.
We go that route. There'd be a lot of teenage boys worrying. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Sarah Burris, reporter at Raw Story. RawStory.com, the website. You want to check out the work that she does there. Great stuff. But, I think that's the important part of this conversation. This is a one-way street, and we're putting all the burden on women without going, hey, okay, it does take two to tango. Maybe you start imposing, maximum sentences on stuff. You start bringing some attention to the other side of this equation. Or is that defeatist in the idea that this is already going to happen? Because here's where my other thought in this is. look, I'm personally not in favor of abortion. I personally wouldn't have one. But, being a 55-year-old white guy, I'm well past my childbearing years. So I don't have a lot of say in this. But I know government isn't the right person to make this decision. And I certainly know evangelical right-wing fanatics are certainly not the right people to be making this decision. And this is where, again, I think we should be having the right people do this. Women, their doctors, and their conscience. Not me, not some crazy person, them.
And not somebody's God. Whoever your God is may not be my God. The government doesn't dictate what religious figure should be in control of your lives, what kind of religious classroom you can have, or what you're mandated to say or not say in your classroom. All of these things seem to be this spiral down into this kind of Christian nationalism that, we're seeing little tiny pieces of it. And at some point, it's really just a slippery slope before we're just like, oh God, this is a lot.
No,
right?
I took a beating a couple years ago from people over. I said, I'm much more concerned about Christian Sharia law than I was, Sharia law when they were Islamophobic, terrorism, or whatever words they were using, buzzwords they were throwing out. I was going, no, I'm just as afraid, if not more so, of the Christian terrorists who want to bring us their version of Sharia law, because this is a part of that. It's about the control. It's about the oppression. It's about what we're seeing. Now, interestingly enough, I'm looking at Susan Collins, who,
why?
Does she have any credibility left anywhere?
No.
Okay.
No, God, no. And what's funny too is there was, I guess, she made some comment today about the law that they're going to try and pass in the Senate, that they're going to just bring up for a vote. In the Senate.
Thanks for stepping all over that. This is where I was going.
And Blumenthal, this is interesting. Blumenthal, she made some comment about how this basically would strip the rights from any Catholic university hospitals or Catholic hospitals or religious hospitals who don't believe in performing abortions. And I think it was either Blumenthal or Whitehouse who was just like, what the hell are you talking about? No, it doesn't. And it's sort of like, I just, now Susan Collins is just making stuff up. I don't know if she's just straight out lying or she's just making stuff up, we were talking about that law, the putting it before Congress, and it's like we already know who is anti-choice. They voted for Kavanaugh. They voted for Amy Coney Barrett after she said that a child had to give birth. Right? Like there's a whole bunch of states around who've now decided that they're going to hand babies to child molesters. These people who somehow think that they're going to be that they're fighting this war against pedophilia and all this QAnon stuff, and yet they're handing babies over to child molesters.
Yeah.
Really?
Now I understand there's a vote coming up. Schumer is calling for a vote, I guess next week, sometime early.
I think they're doing a vote tomorrow.
Are they doing a vote tomorrow?
I thought they were.
I thought it was up on Wednesday, but it could be as early as tomorrow.
I don't know. I was on the way to the airport today.
But this has got to happen. I think a vote has to happen. I think we, how it's going to go, and I think you're spot on accurate, right? We know how the vote's going to go, but I think you have to have it on the record in this moment. I think this is that next step, and you have to have it, because I think you need to keep putting these people on the record and keep it in front of them, and I think it needs to be in the debate.
I think it should be in the debate. I think it's performative in a way that it makes me frustrated, because I'm ready to start figuring out what our next steps are. Do we need to have women or men or anybody donating airline miles to help fund plane trips for women? Do we need to start programs where, like somebody has a pink house that, somebody can bring their kids over to a safe space while they're having the procedure done? Do we need to have, how do we start organizing in these states to make sure that the women who cannot get a procedure done can?
Yeah, but here's the problem, and this is the scary part. We were talking about this yesterday on the show. There are companies out there that are tracking people's cell phones. There are people out there that are using all kinds of different tracking methods to find where people are, how they are. And look, because of the Texas law, there's going to be an industry propping up of people who are going to make a living off of hunting women down and turning them in. I mean, we're living in, just one of those dystopian novels of the 30s right before our eyes, of people literally ratting each other out. This is where we could go with some of these laws. And I fear that this is going to be the future, that this Texas law is going to be cross-border. Missouri wants to do the same thing, where it doesn't matter where you live or what state you go to, they're going to track you down. This will be at least that's how I see it. I'm curious your thought.
I think one of the things that I would like to hear the Supreme Court talk about is, are they passing this law off of the Mississippi law, or are they passing this off of, are they authorizing this off of the Texas law? Because if you're banning abortion after 15 weeks or after 6 weeks or whatever it is that you're going to ban, that's one thing. If you're going to criminalize it and have this bounty hunter law, like that is going to the courts, and the court needs to decide that. They need to decide this is not just about abortion. This is about criminalizing abortion, right, putting women in jail. And we've already seen them arrest the woman who had a miscarriage, and they tried to accuse her of having some sort of self-caused abortion or something, and it wasn't. I mean, she was in jail, and it wasn't until people just threw a fit nationally that she was let out, and a prosecutor was like, "No, we're not charging this. This is stupid." So I want the Supreme Court to step in here. If they've decided that this is going to be illegal, does that mean we're putting women in jail?
Do you really want this Supreme Court stepping in here?
Yeah,
Seriously.
I do. Because if not, then, and I think that they have to decide this. If they're going to just sort of let that sort of float out in the ether, then these states are going to pass these laws. And I think people who are going to the polls in November need to know what their government is supporting, right? And if the Supreme Court is doing this, then everybody who's going to the polls in November needs to be able to, vote for somebody else. If those are the laws that we're going to have, then people deserve to know that that's what their future is.
Crazy stuff. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Sarah Burris, reporter at Raw Story. I got to get your thoughts on this, though. Change of topic. Like I said at the beginning, the Republicans are throwing Madison Cawthorn under the bus. And look, rightfully so. I mean, this guy's chaotic as all can be. And I know he said, don't judge me by the things I did in my early 20s, which was about 20 minutes ago. Because he's only 26 years old. But, twice he's had his license revoked. Twice he brought a gun to the airport and got caught. He's been, accused of unwanted sexual advances, insider trading, accused of misuse of taxpayer funds twice. He's been accused of violating House rules. We now find there's a sex tape or something sexual of a tape of him thrusting something in some guy's face, a cousin or something. I don't know. Here's him dressed up in women's clothes. You got the staffer rubbing his staff. You got some Nazi vacation stuff things going on. There's just, for a young guy, there's a lot. There's a lifetime of scandal here. There's a lifetime of bad choices here. In fact, so much so that you go, how exactly did you get into Congress without this stuff coming out in the first place? But again, I digress. He's still leading in the polls.
Not only how did you make it the first time, but how the hell are you 26 years old and that is all of the stuff you've done? I'm 36 and I haven't done half of that stuff.
Well,
who
you're
has
slacking.
the time? I mean, I don't get how people have the energy for that. I got to work all day. I'm tired at the end of the day. I'm not going out sticking my, boobs in somebody's face. I think that there are two different things here. There are the actual crimes, and then there are the things that really highlight his hypocrisy. this idea of family values and morality, and he made some speech where he was complaining about, you know, people sexualizing everything. It's like, dude, you're on tape sticking your wang in some dude's face. Like, you want to talk to me about sexualizing something when you're waving it around on video? Come on. So I think a lot of the people are just like, oh, you know, this is the same as you know, exposing some woman's, you know, nude photos or stuff. And it's like, well, first of all, that part is blurred out, at least. I think this is about calling out the hypocrisy of somebody who purports to be this paragon of virtue. And, you know, I think that regardless of what happens to Madison Cawthorn, he is the biggest gift to Democrats ever of all time. I mean, remember Aaron Schock when he like spent all that money to dress up his office like Downton Abbey, and, you know, spent had some sweetheart real estate deals and stuff. Republicans got rid of him very quickly. And so I'm wondering if this will happen with Madison Cawthorn, because they are the ones that are behind all of this dirt on him and trying to get rid of him. If they don't get rid of him, it really is just a gift for Democrats. So, you know, I say I'm kind of for like, yeah, keep Madison Cawthorn, because he's going to make Democrats a lot of money.
Yeah, write him in. And I, maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. I blame this all on the fact that he came out and he said that there are orgies and cocaine parties in D.C. He said the quiet part out loud, that his circle, you know, the evangelical types, the prim and proper, the puritanical, that, well, they're a kinky bunch. That they've got some secrets in the closet that they don't want anyone to know. And when you say that stuff out loud, they push back.
Yeah, and honestly, it makes me wonder if the one that he hacked off so much was McCarthy. Like, he's someone who seems really upset about this. Is Kevin McCarthy like having orgies and stuff at some fancy McMansion in Virginia somewhere? I don't know. I think that if I was Madison Cawthorn and my own party was coming after me like that, I'd be throwing names out. And if anything, like, I'd be throwing names out at the Inquirer to make some money out of it, or the Daily Mail or TMZ or something. He could be making a ton of money by naming names. So, you know, just throwing it out there. If you're going to lose your career, you may as well go down swinging. Pardon the pun.
He's going to need it, because once they're done with him, once they cut people off like this, they don't let them back into the fold.
Yeah.
Because I think he's gotten a little big for his britches, and I think this is their way of showing, because the entire party, I mean, the fact that they got both U.S. senators, you know, they're attacking him. I mean, it's really, I'll be honest, it's really quite awe-inspiring, the level that they're going to get this guy out of there. I mean, it's quite amazing. This is why I'm actually, in a way, hoping that he wins.
That is how you know that there really are a lot of orgies and a lot of cocaine happening. That is the best way that you can tell that this is really going on. And frankly, like, I had heard about the sex parties. I hadn't heard about orgies. But I had heard like a little bit about sex parties here and there, because every major city has people who are kinky and do whatever. But I think what Madison Cawthorn did is he seemed willing to talk about it with people.
No, he violated the circle of trust. He violated the circle of trust.
And that just was not okay for the Republican Party. And so they were just like, how dare you? Like, we can't trust you anymore. Therefore, we need to throw you in the river. Yep.
Robert De Niro, he violated the circle of trust. The Fockers are coming, man.
It's like The Departed, where they drop Martin Sheen off the roof.
There you go. That is what it is.
They're going to do to pass the Cawthorn.
Well, we'll see. Sarah, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too, our good friend Sarah Burris. rawstory.com, the website. Make sure you check that out. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss an episode. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For working people. Come to talk.
It doesn't happen like we think it does. No one rolls the tanks. No armies meet in pitched battle. It happens quietly, little by little. And because so many think it can't happen, it does happen. Little by little, the rules change. It doesn't seem shocking or sudden. And that's the point. Fewer places to vote, longer lines. Don't worry, they say. We're just improving the system. They hope we won't notice the rules are changing because they lost the last election. They hope we just won't care enough to stop them. They believe they can take America away from us, and we won't even notice. We know who they are. We know what they want. The question is, who are we? Do we let them get away with it, or do we fight? Democracy is on the ballot. Vote while your vote still counts. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. This is one of those days where, I haven't spent an awful lot of time talking about the Supreme Court, but this is one of those moments where in my mind, as I'm thinking about what John Logan was talking about, just how, I guess I'm struck by him, and maybe it was a slip, maybe it was a thought, but how these workers are now radicalized because they want dignity and respect. Is that the new radicalized? Is this the new definition of what is now radical? Because if it is, then now for the first time in my life, I am going to be radical. Because I think it's one of these things that I've been saying for years, we should be demanding at least. And look, as the Chris Small thing, not new. Look, I've always railed against that. Look, you don't know what your job is, but you know how bad the union is. You know how bad that they're not going to do anything for you. Again, back to as I said the other night, as my grandfather always said, if a rich guy's going to take a buck out of his pocket to tell you you don't need something, you better spend two to get it. They're not spending all this money, making these slick anti-union propaganda videos. They're not spending these millions of dollars on these union busters. They're not coming up with all of these campaigns. They're not doing all of this work because they care about you. They're not doing all of this because they care about your family. They're doing all of this because they understand return on investment. They understand that by you unionizing means you're going to get better wages, hours, and conditions. You're going to have better opportunities at work. You're going to get more of their profits. You're going to share in the wealth that your labor creates. That's what they're afraid of. All the other stuff, just noise. Absolute noise. All this talk of, we're not going to be able to run our business the way we want to. You're right. You're not going to be able to exploit people in quite the same ways you used to in the past. You're going to have to negotiate on how you exploit people. And you're going to have to write it down, and you're going to have to, abide by that. That's what contracts are. And they don't want that. Now, as I said at the start, the reality is you're in this moment where companies can stave off union campaigns really simply. And this isn't rocket science. I'm not Magellan discovering new lands. I'm not letting the secret. I haven't opened up the secret room and shown you the secret decoder ring. This isn't a shock. So you don't even need to sit down for this. But for those who may not know, maybe you might want to. Here's how you stop union organizing campaigns. I, as a union supporter, am going to let the cat out of the bag. Here is how you ensure that your workers never unionize. This is it. This is the secret. I could save Amazon $200 million in Bessemer, Alabama. Here's how you do it. You ready? Got the paper, pencil, got the recorder on, everything set. This is how you do it. Step 1, treat people with dignity and respect. Pay them a good living wage. Value them as people. Value them as employees. Make them part of the system. That's it. You talk to people on why they organize. They organize because they don't feel valued and they feel cheated. They feel like they're being exploited and ripped off. That's the reason people organize. They feel disrespected, they feel unsafe, and they feel that they're not sharing in the wealth that their labor creates. You do away with those things, you treat them with dignity and respect, you give them a good, safe place to work, you make them part of it, give them ownership, and you pay them well so that they're not struggling and they're not suffering and their families can thrive. You would never have a union organizing campaign ever in this country. But you know what? We've got too many greedy CEOs, or me, mine. And that, my friends, that's why we have union organizing. And if you work for a company that doesn't treat you with that dignity and respect and treat you well and pay you a reasonable living wage, then you should be in a union. You should be demanding better wages, hours, and conditions because you're worth it, because you earn it. That's simple. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of the program, podcast. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been